Memory transcription subject: Governor Tarver of the Venal Republic. Date: Standardized Human Time, October 6th, 2136. There was a heaviness in my heart as the 4 diplomats were ushered into the briefing room. The Mazik had been creating quite the scene outside, accusing his human hosts of kidnapping Laulo. Apparently, no amount of tact could prevent that. The Uplift's disappearance was noted within minutes. President Kupo's dramatic theories that the Predators intended to poke and prod every diplomat were generating panic among the others. That meant we had to brief everyone about the sabotage and the missing craft. The information needed to be turned over to the media as soon as possible too, since Kupo's outburst occurred in front of live cameras. How can we persuade such a paranoid individual? His mind longed to believe that humanity was up to something. I wasn't sure how much of this briefing the Civ Kit would remember, given that she was drugged with a light sedative. The Mazik, who had been quite gentle with Axeli, had to carry her into the room. The humans couldn't breathe without spooking the fluffy representative. Noah had accused the Civ Kit Grand Herd of having a poor choice of personnel, and I'd begun to agree. I should order her to return home and request that the herd send someone else. With behavior like this, it's impossible to establish any relations with her species. Tossa was oddly quiet, and her gaze darted across the waiting predators. Despite her disdain for uplifts, her snooty attitude slipped when Laulo disappeared from their ranks. The Nevok had been trying to hawk her planet's refined metals and microchips to any Terran that would listen, but now that interest had subsided. Even Charleston looked curious at why the yacht all had vanished from their ranks, though he had more of an inkling what was going on. We had told him in no uncertain terms that someone on the ship could be involved. A scientist of the Cerulean's intellect might put the pieces together.
I knew from the beginning that we couldn't trust you, predators, Kupo spat as he took a seat on the floor. You were just waiting to get us here to turn on us.
Chawson's whiskers twitched.
You should wait to hear what they're going to tell you before you start with that nonsense. It's not what you think.
Wait, you know? So Tarver and Noah have been selecting who to spin their yarns with? Who to hide things from? Tossa growled. The Mazik president flared his trunk. Half the shit that comes out of a human's mouth is a lie. Who knows why they want to manipulate us, but I bet it's about control. All their species has shown they care about is power. The UN diplomats fidgeted with their visors, clearly uncomfortable with their accusatory rhetoric. This couldn't have been their expectation when they greeted the landing party. I winced as I saw the anger on the Terran generals' faces. They lacked the poise and the patience of their diplomatic counterparts. It was tough for them to shrug off insults.
You know what? Fuck the Federation. You can fuck right back off to your ship.
General Zhao stood from his chair and leaned across the table towards the Mazik president.
All you'll care about is where a person's eyes are on their head.
General Jones reclined in her seat.
And these are the friendly species, Zhao. Who needs enemies with friends like these?
Axel's chest was racked with sobs as the primate's tone escalated. The military humans shifted their annoyance to the snivelling animal. Their binocular eyes smoldered with indignation. The general's tolerance for predator bigotry had been tested for the last time.
And you, with the white pelt, you can't even look at us. Why are you here?
The Chinese general spat. Jones bared her teeth, intentionally pointing them at the Civ Kit.
Get a grip. You're embarrassing your race.
To be honest, if the brunt of a human's anger was directed at me, it would make me clam up too. When their jaw muscles were clenched, it showcased their flesh-tearing bite force. The lack of fur made the protruding bones and bulging veins more obvious. Translucent skin confined the rage bubbling beneath the surface. I can tell they're in control, but I don't think any other alien can.
That is enough! All of you are acting like children, I screeched. Let's agree that we've all messed up in one way or another. We shared our information with Chawson because he's the only one not looking for an excuse to spout predator nonsense. You lot just proved my point.
Noah squeezed my paw onto the table. Also, you guys tend to freak out at the slightest sign of danger. It was hard enough to keep everyone calm on the ship. The Nevok diplomat sighed. You get one chance to explain yourselves. The truth. Anti-human plotters in the Federation tried to kill us all with a cooling shaft malfunction. Rell's ship is missing, probably for the same reason, I replied. We're trying to figure out who's responsible and hold them accountable, Noah added. Tosser snorted. And you think his little primitive Laulo? The Terran ambassador tensed beside me. Clearly, recent events hadn't stopped his defensive reaction to any primitive jabs. I gave Noah a look that warned him not to interfere. He swallowed hard and inhaled a series of deep breaths. This was not the time for him to give the Nevok an earful, especially when she was the most level-headed person here, not named Chawson. I offered a non-committal tail swish. We're suspicious enough to ask questions. It was plain to see from the representatives' faces that they were worried about how those questions were being asked. I swapped a few buttons on my holopad and cast the security feed of the cell to the projector. The Masterpool was seated alone on a bench with his head in his paws. It was the Predator's suggestion to let him wait for a while, to give him time to marinate, was their phrase. I didn't like that wording, but as long as the humans didn't suggest physical harm, I was happy to let them try out their techniques. The feisty uplift raised his head and stared at the camera. I know you're listening, Ambassador Noah. I can see that red light blinking. I want to talk. Too bad, I don't, the astronaut muttered to himself. The Mazik president settled down, once he saw the Yotl in pristine condition. I was surprised that he hadn't suggested that humanity could have staged the sabotage. Kupo was a strange case, and it was tough to pinpoint what he hoped to gain from diplomacy. Telling the Terran military, to their faces, that he thought all humans avaricious liars, that could only stem from remarkable disdain. The fact that the leader came himself could be chalked up to an attempt at honorability. Kupo didn't want anyone else to die for what he believed was a foolish gamble. Was it simply a desperation play, like he told Noah? I didn't know if he'd ever see humanity as anything more than predators. General Jones tapped her earpiece. Governor, a United Nations scout ship recovered a data buoy within the search perimeter, almost missed it on sensors. My ears perked up. Standard Federation vessels were equipped with 2 data buoys, which could be ejected if a ship was in distress. They contained information about a ship's function, and could be encoded with a message from the captain. The buoy emitted a distress signal for a week, or as long as any nearby starlight replenished its power. Common scenarios for their usage included emergency landings, mechanical failures, or after sustaining damage in battle. It could offer insight to a vessel's fate, or point rescuers in the right direction. I was uncertain whether to view a buoy's deployment as a positive or a negative sign. It meant that the ship had incurred trouble, but it also meant Rell had been aware of the problem before a drive meltdown. Maybe they were in the process of mending considerable damage. All that mattered was whether they were alive. Alright, was your team able to extract the data? I asked. Yes, there appears to be a short video log included. Jones scrolled through the file archives and tapped the mentioned item. Shall I clear these interlopers out so we can review what it says in private? My ears flattened against my head. They're not interlopers. At some point we have to start acting like friends. I'm counting on humanity to take the first step. I muted the feed from Laulo's cell and moved that window into background processing. The American general frowned as I gestured to the projector. Her gaze drifted to the skeptical Mazik. That first impression didn't make her eager to share intelligence. There was no telling what was on the video file, and it might not take much for such individuals to jump to conclusions. A smog-filled cabin was depicted on the projector, with a delirious caution at the helm. Rell dabbed a damp rag against his forehead. The internal temperature must be sweltering. The smoke was so thick that grey tendrils seemed to curl around the Federation officer's form. His orange eyes were listing and unfocused. I glimpsed a few Federation diplomats behind him, all wearing vac suits to avoid the toxins. They would only be good while the half-day's oxygen supply lasted. Upon closer inspection, Rell set a helmet down, out of the camera's focus. He must have taken it off so he could be seen and heard on the recording.
This is Rell of the Kolshian Commonwealth. A few hours ago, we noticed signs of a fire in the warp drive compartment. With the core ablaze, repairs are impossible.
The officer burst into a coughing fit and paused to catch his breath.
Emergency shutdown has been unsuccessful. Once it reaches a certain temperature, it's going to go off like a bomb.
As panicked as Rell had been around humans, his tranquility in the face of impending death was remarkable. I don't know how he kept the diplomats calm, or why they hardly reacted to those words. It helped that their ship didn't have a predator around to add fuel to their instinctual fear. Still, perhaps we just couldn't hear their cries from beneath their suits. The Kolshian pilot grimaced.
I know we have mere hours, at most, but I'm at peace with my death. I spent my final day seeking the first real chance the Federation's had at ending the war in my lifetime.
Isn't that a beautiful thought? Water swelled in my eyes as the finality of their predicament sank in. Rell's contributions to galactic peace were monumental and rarely received full acknowledgement. When push came to shove, he found the courage to support humanity. It was his belief in diplomacy, encouraging us to attend the summit, that led Noah to speak to the Federation. If it weren't for that heroic veteran, it would still be the two of us against the galaxy. Sovereign's actions could have been the catalyst for war. Humanity would have never seized the opportunity to voice their side of the story, or open themselves up to new partners.
Rell might be the person who saved Earth, who deserves as much credit as my dear Noah, I mused. There are some people who want to silence my version of events regarding the torture of a human prisoner. I want it known that all I regret is that I didn't act sooner, he sputtered. That I never had the courage to check in on Marcel and apologize for my part in it. I hope he's doing well.
The Kolshian could hardly speak between coughing outbursts. His eyelids fluttered with exhaustion. He huddled over the console and rested a grasper over the send button. The lack of clear oxygen had pushed him to the brink of unconsciousness.
Rell gritted his teeth. Humans, if you see this, I remember what your leader said about desiring coexistence. I hope people give you a chance and that you won't lose faith. The things you endure would be too much for any other species, but you're not them. You're strong. You're predators. Maybe that is a good thing.
The Terran ambassador's mouth was agape with horror as we observed Rell pour at his throat. This was someone we had travelled with for days, who offered his unique perspective on Federation history. It wasn't all that long ago the Kolshian greeted us in the hangar bay and thanked Noah for reminding him what courage felt like.
Time's up, Rell whined in a pained voice. Kick some Arxer ass for me, humans. Leave a little less ugly in the galaxy. I have faith in you.
The transmission cut out with a final beep and was replaced by a grim static. The Federation diplomats looked aghast at what we just witnessed. Even Axley was showing signs of lucidity. The Terran generals dropped their scowls and bowed their heads in a solemn display of grief. There was something sobering about a person's last words.
We have to help them, Capot spat. Send a ship!
Ambassador Noah nodded. I will fly it myself if I have to. Those are our allies and they're in trouble. General Jones's lips curved down.
This video is timestamped 3 days ago. There's no vessels on sensors, only a few stray energy readings, which suggests...
The only trace we'd find of the occupants was their atoms scattered across local space. Humanity's first interactions with those 6 species would be the unenviable task of explaining how their diplomats died. I didn't know how we would convince their leadership not to fault the predators.
Condolences and words might not cut it. We need concrete proof.
The words the Kokotl uttered, that anyone who stood with humanity was dead to them, lingered in my ears. It was difficult for me to process that parties in the Federation would murder civilians for the crime of speaking to predators. I wouldn't blame our new allies for not wanting to believe it was their long-standing friends. My claws flung the prison surveillance back onto the projector. I was trembling with outrage. A taped confession would be a start, even if others accused us of coercion. Forget waiting. I switched on the intercom function and leaned into my holopad. Why did you betray us, Laulo? Why? The Yotl glanced up with a hopeful expression. I'm so sorry. Saving our shuttle seemed like enough to spark gratitude. I just wanted to impress Noah so humanity wouldn't discard us, like everyone else. A chorus of gasps echoed from our Federation contingent. The Predator generals looked mystified by his rationale, and their eyes narrowed to intimidating slits. None of us expected such a straightforward confession, even when I was hoping we pegged the masterful wrong. Impress me? You killed Rell and almost killed us! Noah snarled over my shoulder. You're a homicidal psychopath! Laulo blinked. What? Were you not listening to what I said before? I didn't do it. I just saw who did and used the opportunity to, prove myself. The human squinted. Why should we believe that? Why wouldn't you come forward straight away? Murmurs of agreement came from the alien diplomats. It was bizarre to see the Mazik nodding along to a Terran argument, but it was natural to suspect the Yotl's claim. On one paw, it seemed like a lousy attempt to dodge responsibility. On the other, it made more sense than an uplift plotting a complex technological scheme. The Takan representative saw them too and tried to intervene. Didn't you wonder why one friendly species never made it to the shuttle? Laulo hissed. Besides, we were on their territory. If I spoke up sooner, we would have never left Arthur. Confusion stirred in my chest. You're saying it was... The uplift swished his tail. The Kolshians wanted the human ambassador and his friends dead. Not me. Who would have unfettered access to the shuttles? Who planned the whole trip and saw Rell as a loose end? I fell back on my haunches, stunned to silence. Those words synced with the facts a little too perfectly. If Laulo was telling the truth, a touch DNA sweep by the Corps should corroborate it. However, it didn't add up. Why an influential species would grant humanity a public audience and seek a military alliance, only to kill us? Was it even possible for our predators to track down a Kolshian official and demand answers? Chief Nikonos was secure at the heart of Federation territory. As much as I wanted to avenge the fallen vessel, nothing good could come from blazing a trail of destruction. My expertise would focus on the diplomatic side, salvaging our relations with the victimized species. The choice of how to respond to a personal and cowardly attack belonged to the humans.